It all starts out like this. There's a prince and his mom, the queen, sitting in a room, and the prince goes all crazy and starts stabbing at this guy that was spying on them through a curtain, and the guy dies. And I find out later that the guy actually had a daughter who was the prince's lover. So the daughter goes all crazy because her lover killed her father and starts handing flowers to everyone. Then she starts hanging flowers from this tree and falls into a river below and drowns. And I'm not totally sure if it was suicide or not, but the queen comes and finds her. And then the queen rushes back into the kingdom to tell the king about what had happened. And the king doesn't seem upset at all. But then the girl's brother comes in and starts yelling at the king and demanding to see his father's body. But only the prince knew where the body was. The brother doesn't know that his sister's dead yet, but when he finds out, he jumps into the grave and starts yelling that he loves his sister so much they might as well bury him with her. But then the prince comes and jumps into the grave too and says he loves her more than the brother, and the two start to argue. Then it goes from them fighting in the grave to the prince and the queen in the queen's room again. The prince was comparing two pictures, and while he's doing this, a ghost appears and starts yelling at the prince. But the queen can't see the ghost, so she's confused as to who the prince is talking to. Then it goes to the prince and this guy talking in a room, and the guy asks if he will fight with the brother, and the prince agrees. They go to the fighting spot and begin to fight. The first one to get hit was the prince. Everyone is happy, and the king jumps up and takes a drink of wine. He then puts something into the wine glass and tries to get the prince to take a drink, but the prince refuses. He has his mother wipe his brow. The king sits back down, and the two continue to fight, until the prince gets another hit. The king jumps up again, and the queen grabs the cup this time. The king tries to get the queen to not take a drink from the cup, but she refuses, and she takes a drink anyway. The king looks so guilty. That's when I knew it. It was his plan all along to try to kill the king with the cup, so the cup must be poisoned. Nobody seemed to notice at first, though. So the queen wipes the prince's brow again, and at that point, the brother gets a cheap shot on the prince. The prince looks weak, and this is when I realized the swords have to be poisoned too. And it was the king and the brother's idea. At this point, I'm totally confused to why I'm having a dream about this in the first place, but the fight was pretty cool. The two begin to fight again, and continue to fight until the queen collapses. The prince rushes over to her. Everyone is confused as to why the queen has collapsed out of her seat, until the queen realizes it was the cup, and then tells the prince the cup was poisoned. The prince gets super mad and starts to stab at the brother. The brother gets hit, and the brother falls to the ground. Then, feeling so bad, he admits that the king and him are to blame, and says the sword and the cup are both poisoned. The prince then makes the king drink from the poisoned cup, and then stabs the sword into him. The prince and a guy are left. The prince starts talking to the guy, but the guy grabs the cup and is about to take a drink. But the prince says that everyone else is dead, so the guy has to stay alive to tell a different guy that he's king. The guy doesn't drink and stays at the fighting scene until the new king arrives. When the new king arrives, he tells what had happened. He then grabs the crown from the prince's head, puts it on the new king, and then grabs the sword. After he hands him the sword, he has officially made him the new king. And that's where my dream kind of stopped.